Welcome back to Formula for Average. It's been 5 weeks and Formula One now finally is back. And back in Miami. And there has been several things or several items which has happened during these 5 weeks. Of course, rule regulation changes to enable a better racing, to enable or restrict these speed differences or deltas so that the approaching car wouldn't be, let's say, as fast approaching as it was before because of the crash what Oliver Behrman had in Japan. So they're trying to fix these items. Then there are some start procedure changes and so on. So it's been good in a way. These 5 weeks have given time for Formula One to adjust what has been wrong in the first 3 races. Also, it gave an opportunity for the teams to come with an upgrade, so additional developments during these 5 weeks, because they didn't have to go racing, so they could spend the time further developing their cars. And as you see from my background, in my opinion, one of the teams who has benefited the most at the moment is McLaren. And we will discuss that when we discuss the sprint happenings. And also news broke that starting from next year, we will have also a Turkish Grand Prix back on the calendar. So during these last 5 weeks, a lot has happened, but of course the most exciting part is now here, that we are back to racing in Miami. So it's a sprint weekend, and today let's discuss the sprint qualifying, sprint race, and the main qualifying. So basically, let's discuss the happenings from Friday and Saturday. And without further ado, let's take a look what happened in the sprint qualifying. And as we can see from these results, as I said, in my opinion, the most improved team is McLaren. We remember how bad they were, that they were not even able to start races, and Oscar Piastri didn't start even 2 races in a row. And then, of course, in Japan, they already started to show the signs that they could be competitive. But now in sprint qualifying and sprint race itself, they showed that, in my opinion, they are back in the mix. They are serious contenders for the if not drivers, then at least for constructors championship. But I believe that still there's a chance that either Norris or Piastri could fight for the championship. Yes, still at this stage it's far-fetched a little bit, but I think the results which they showed in sprint qualifying and in sprint race are very encouraging. Also very encouraging, in my opinion, here is Red Bull. And of course, in particular, Max Verstappen, but still also Hajar, but mainly, yes, it's Max. And Max, in qualifying, in sprint qualifying, he was P5, but then of course later the race went even better than that. So in my opinion, also Red Bull have achieved a good results during these 5 weeks, developing their car, and also now introducing the same sort of Macarena, this rear wing, the same as actually first time Ferrari actually used it in the competitive session, because previously they just used it for training and testing. Now they used it in the competitive session. So I think also they have decided that this wing is good enough, and now also Red Bull is following in the same footsteps. And of course also I think these 3 sessions what we have had so far this weekend when I'm recording this podcast, or not this episode, sorry, then there are the 5 teams. It's of course Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull, McLaren, and Alpine. Those 5 teams are the ones which are now fighting for first 10 places. Yes, Alpine is a little bit more far back, so it seems, but still, these 5 teams, they are the ones which are fighting for the top 5 in constructors, and top 10 in drivers. The rest of the teams, in my opinion, none of those teams below or in the second half of the grid, they have not, let's say, how to put it nicely, they have not developed enough to change the order much, because Williams still relatively bad. Not talking about Aston Martin at all, they are completely bad. Cadillac shows some glimpses of improvements, but overall we are not expecting much from them still. Maybe Racing Bulls, they have fallen, let's say, behind a little bit, but maybe it's just a coincidence. So in my opinion, this sprint qualifying, it just showed that I think most improved team at this moment is McLaren, followed closely by Red Bull, which is good to see from the perspective of pure competition. And let's take a look at the results of the sprint race. And as I said, the most improved team, in my opinion, and it shows also on the scoreboard, is McLaren. Lando Norris took off and never gave a chance to anybody else. Oscar Piastri, he was, let's say, in very stable second place, but then Leclerc towards the end of the sprint closed the gap a little bit. So in that sense, it was a little bit shaky for Oscar, and overall I think it was a safe race for Piastri. And although there was some attempts from Leclerc, I think overall Piastri was safe, and there was no sort of doubt that he could lose the second place. Ferrari, well, good session from them, especially for Charles. I was surprised by Hamilton, actually, how fast he dropped back, because he lost the place to Verstappen, and then he's just started to fall back, and I don't know, was there something wrong with the car, or he just understood that there's no point of fighting, and that's it. I don't know, but that was a little bit disappointing to see how fast Hamilton dropped back after he lost the position to Verstappen. Antonelli initially finished higher up, but received a 5-second penalty, so dropped behind Verstappen. And the rest of the grid, as I said, no big surprises in my opinion. I think Haas could improve and could do better in the race, but at the moment this is the case, and they are, let's say, 6th fastest team at this moment. I think it will be close battle between them and Alpine as the season develops. So we'll see. But at the moment, 11th and 12th in the race. I think given how bad their qualifying was, I think this is a decent result for them. So in that sense, no other big surprises. Yes, Hulkenberg and Lindblad didn't even start the session, and Bortoleto did not finish. So no, sorry, not did not finish. He was disqualified due to some kind of a technical breach. But other than that, I think pretty expected, especially the second half of the grid. Next, I want to take a look at the telemetry from sprint qualifying. This is sprint qualifying. And the reason I brought this up is simple. I wanted to look how bad or how good now looks this super clipping phase, because one of the items why the rules were improved or changed was that to reduce the super clipping and sort of increase the racing or the absolute, so that the drivers would go even, let's say, flat out more, in sense that they shouldn't save the battery so much, or they should not manage it so much, in a sense. And here I selected three competitive laps from Norris, Antonelli, and Leclerc from sprint qualifying, to see if they have managed to address these issues. And here's the thing. As we can see, this is the sort of the one of the straights. It's not a straight, but let's assume that this is almost a straight, because as we see from throttle application here, all the drivers, they are 100% flat out. They are flat out throughout this location on the track. However, if we look at the speed, then we see what happens here. We still have the same issue. Maybe it's not so great, because at the peak, let's take for example Antonelli. At the peak, he has a top speed of 340 kilometers per hour, and then right before he starts braking, he drops to 316. So still, even going flat out, the speed is decreasing. And this is this straight here, as we see, turns 9, 10. Basically, at the turn 10, they reach the high speed, and then going forward, right before the turn 11 and braking zone here in turn 11, where they start to brake, they are already dropping the speed, even though, as I said, the throttle application is still at 100%. So it's still evident. And the other location is this straight between 16 and 17. Also the same here, although here actually the curve is a little bit different. If we see, orange is McLaren, red is Ferrari, and this cyan is Mercedes, then we see that this Mercedes curve is a little bit better, and they do not drop as much, but then they start to drop, let's say, more quickly. And even though with this kind of curve, they are also braking a little later, but I don't know. This looks a little bit weird, to be honest, because for McLaren, it's pretty much repeating the same pattern as it is repeating here. For Ferrari, also pretty much the same pattern as it was here in this other straight. But for Mercedes, the curve is a little bit different. If we compare the same results or the same graphs, let's close Antonelli and Ferrari, meaning Leclerc. Let's go select 2025 just to compare. Let's take Miami. Where is Miami? There is Miami. And let's take the same sprint qualifying, and let's take Norris. And selecting his fastest lap, so be it here. So now, here we have the comparison. Okay, the color is a little bit hard to... Let's select this one, green color. So green is 2025, orange is 2026. So here we can clearly see the pattern differences. And this is the super clipping phase, what we see here in 2026 compared to 2025. And in my opinion, this is still not fixed because we can clearly see that in 2025 the throttle application, not throttle application, the acceleration, the throttle application in both cases is 100%. They are flat out. But the acceleration curve is completely different. And as we see here, so somewhere in the middle of turn 10, it's sort of the cross point happens when in 2025 they were still accelerating, but in 2026 they are already slowing down. And the same here we can see in this straight between 16 and 17, also the same point here, that towards the end of the straight they were still accelerating last year, and in this year they are already sort of super clipping. So is it fixed completely? No. Is it better? Hard to tell, probably. If the drivers are more happy, then I guess it is better. But my point here is that we still have these issues with super clipping, and that the rule changes or rule adjustments which they have made is not 100% solved the issue. But I guess this is the Formula 1 2026 which we need to deal with. Okay, and the last bit for today, which I want to discuss, is the main qualifying for tomorrow's race. And here are some interesting things. And the most interesting for me personally is McLaren's speed. Where did it go? As we see, Lando Norris only P4, Oscar Piastri only P7. And this is a little bit surprising to me, because I thought after the sprint, I thought that they will be sort of untouchable, which they are not. And if we look at the deltas, so Lando Norris lost 0.385 seconds to Kimi Antonelli, and Piastri lost 0.7 seconds. And this is a little bit, I want to hear what the drivers have to say. Did they make some mistakes or something? But this is surprising to me, because I didn't expect that after the clean sweep of sprint race that McLaren would be so far behind, in a way, so far behind. And this is interesting. Of course, we still need to see what they can do tomorrow in the race. And they are promising that it's a high chance that it will be a wet race, so there could be even higher probability of some kind of a mayhem. But still, McLaren, I'm surprised that they fell back, or the others improved. I don't know, or the drivers made some mistake. I don't know. I need to follow up in this. But at the moment, looking at just the results and looking at the session itself, it seems that the McLaren, they just didn't put together something. Another disappointment, in a way, I think it's George Russell, because he must be very frustrated. And I'll also listen to his post-qualifying interview, but he cannot be happy, especially if Antonelli is number one. The one thing with Antonelli is that he needs to make a good start, because the starts has been the bad or the weak point of him for this season, and so he needs to do it better, and he needs to keep the place if he wants to be competitive in the session. And the last surprise, I guess, from this session was Max Verstappen. As we see, he was only 0.166 seconds behind Antonelli, which is a huge improvement. And I think Max did a phenomenal job by getting P2. We'll see, of course, how it pans out tomorrow in the race. But if he can overtake Antonelli, which has usually bad starts, and take P1 in the race, it will be very hard for others to fight back, especially now with these rule changes when the deployment of boost mode is limited and so on. So it will be a harder for others to overtake Max if he manages to get P1 and can control the race pace. So this will be interesting to see. Also, it will be interesting to see how Ferrari are off the line, because before in the first 3 races they were good, very good off the line, but others are improving as well. So it will be interesting to see what Ferrari can do tomorrow, and so on. So yeah, in that sense, I think the first 4 teams are they will be fighting for the most of the points. Maybe there will be, depending on the circumstances, maybe Haas could take some points, maybe Racing Bulls could take some points. With very big luck, maybe Williams could take some points. I don't know. Audi looked rather okay-ish, so maybe they are in the fight for some points. But in order for any of these teams to get some points, I think there has to be something wrong in the first 5 teams. Of course, we will see, especially if it will be a wet race. So we will see what will that bring. But other than that, it's good to see that especially McLaren and Red Bull have stepped up, which means for us even more interesting races. So we will tune in tomorrow to see how that plays out. With that being said, I think at the moment that is it for this podcast or for this episode. Tomorrow, the main race. If it will be a wet race, it will be interesting. If McLaren can fight and be competitive, it will be interesting. If Red Bull, and especially Verstappen, can be competitive, it will be interesting. So it seems that Miami could deliver a good race. Hopefully that will be the case. And that's it for today. Thank you very much. Stay safe and tune in tomorrow for the race analysis. So thank you and bye-bye.